So Jen, tell me about a time in your life that that really kind of left an impression when it comes to peacemaking.
Okay, yes. In 2009, I was working as ministry summer service intern at the Harrisburg First Church of the Brethren in Harrisburg, Pennsylvania.
Yeah.
And I was working with Belita Mitchell and Josiah Ledwick and Gerald Rhodes. And Gerald is the pastor that formulated the Agape Satyagraha curriculum that is, it's becoming nationwide now. And I had a hand in putting that together with Gerald, which was really cool that summer. And so, as a part of my internship, I was mentoring with this program on Wednesday nights. And having a great time getting to know the kids. And some of the kids who came to this Wednesday night program were also a part of the youth group at the church. So part of my internship, I was also working with them there.
And these were all kids from the neighborhood?
Yeah, all kids from the neighborhood. They're on Hummel Street, and in, I think, Allison Hill is the neighborhood around there. So they're from Allison Hill. And so I think, either halfway through the summer or near the end of the summer, I can't remember which, I was sitting outside the house where I had been staying, and I was reading a book. And all of a sudden I heard these gunshots in the distance. And so I just, okay, I closed my book. I'm going to go inside now. So I went inside for the rest of the evening.
You didn't run inside?
No, I didn't run. I just kind of
calmly
put my book together and went inside. No one else was home. It was just me. And so I kind of kept an eye on the news, but I didn't see anything. And the next day was Sunday, so I was going to go to church. And so I got in my car and I drove to church, and as I turned onto the street, Hummel Street, where the church is located, I saw down in the distance some balloons, like the memorials they put together for street homicides. So the community had come together to honor those who had fallen, and I put together that the gunshots I heard were linked to the balloons I had seen. So young men had fallen in the neighborhood the night before, and it was a little jarring for me. I mean, I'm from Los Angeles, but I had never seen like that kind of thing before. And so we went to church, and nothing was mentioned in the church services, which was a little strange to me. And as I realized the kids I had been working with on Wednesday nights grew up in the neighborhood where this happened, and I never asked them, but it was likely that the kids knew who had been killed and had family members in the gang violence that happens in Allison Hill, had family members tied up in the drug addiction. And these kids, the kids we've been working with, are ages 11 to 17, which is what the program's for, teenagers. And I realized that unless these kids have another way of doing life, they're going to end up with their faces next to balloons and candles and teddy bears and things on the side of the street.
And that's because not only of the neighborhood, but also kind of the generational.
Yes, the generational things. They all have, gang violence, especially in that neighborhood, and it's common to cities like this, is generational. So I go into a gang when I'm 16 because my dad did it, because his dad did it, because his dad did it. And it's the only way of life they know. And so unless they have another way of living, another way of believing, then that's what they're going to do. Yeah. And that's why I'm so impressed with what Gerald's done with this curriculum, with Agape Satyagraha, because it gives them another way of living, another way of believing. And it gives them a different road to choose. Like they don't have to choose gang life. They can choose a different way.
It's amazing when we have another choice.
Yes.
When we think we have no choice, then everything becomes, well, that's what's meant to be.
Exactly.
But this is giving another choice.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and so God got a hold of my heart that summer and said, like, this violence has to change. And so I said, okay, I'll change it. Yeah. or at least I'll help. And that's actually the path that got me on towards seminary and ending up here.
But it's interesting in your story, though. It's a mix of a love for other people and getting to know them and the relationship and the violence that surrounds, and then going deeper into kind of their choices and what's happening.
Yeah.
But at the same time, it was also, I guess, opening up new choices for you. So it's not just being a peacemaker for someone, it's being a peacemaker with someone.
Yes.
And how your life has changed.
Yeah,
and
very layered, very complicated.
Yeah, and their life obviously is, we pray, changing as well.
Yes, I hope so. I do hope so.
So where, you have a summer.
I do.
Where, led to seminary. Where else did that experience then kind of jumping off point? Where else did it go?
It went, actually, the next thing I did that was very, very peacy was I did a delegation to Israel-Palestine with Christian peacemaker teams. And that was, oh my gosh, it was amazing. And I think through my experiences in Palestine and through my experiences in Harrisburg, and then through my experiences with the Peace Place, which is a local nonprofit through Trotwood, Ohio, Trotwood Church of the Brethren, doing the Agape Satyagraha curriculum. All of these things have really solidified a call to peace and justice for me. And I think that's the direction that God is leading me towards. And I'm hoping after seminary to do some work with Christian peacemaker teams and to hopefully ultimately work inner city and help and provide this way, this other way of living, other way of believing for as many people as will let me in, as many people as will build a relationship with me and let me get to know them.
Consistent pieces again about relationship and thinking about going, on your Christian peacemaker team. There you're meeting folks again, generation after generation after generation. Few choices. The violence is passed on, surrounded in a context of violence. And what are you doing? You're meeting people. You're talking with people because you love people, and then trying to figure out, is there another way of living?
Exactly.
I love it. Or another way of believing. Or
Yes.
is there a choice? And then in Trotwood, same thing. Working with folks and learning about their story.
Yeah.
Because stories are powerful.
Yeah, they are. Well,
Cool.
Jeff, tell me about a time in your life when you
Story?
story. Give me a story. Story time.
Give you a story from
Yes.
when I was in the 6th grade. Up until that point, I'd never been in a fight. And in the 6th grade, we were riding on the school bus, and my friend Brian and I were in the back of the school bus, and we're goofing off, being 6th graders, and laughing a whole lot. And when the school bus stopped at the bus stop, we got off, end of the day, and as I was walking home with my friend Brian, a boy down the street came up from behind and slugged me in the face. And completely, out of the blue, at least I thought, and slugged me in the face, and I turned around to face this boy, and we got in a tussle. I mean, kind of 6th grade fight, and we were kind of wrestling around on the ground, and book bags kind of strewn about, and I got on top of him, and had him pinned down to the ground, and I remember having my fist, and I had the opportunity just to pummel him. And I remember that moment, and I didn't. And so I stopped, and I knew what I was doing was, this just isn't what you're supposed to do. And I pushed away and got up, and I got my book bag, and I started walking back to the house, and I remember just shaking, and the other kids saying, "He's coming, he's coming, he's coming." And I didn't turn around, and I just kept walking back to the house. And I got to the house, got home, and didn't want to talk about it. I felt like, I got beaten up, this kid had hit me, I had a bruise on my cheek, and was really, really embarrassed. And also just a bit confused as to what happened, and did I do the right thing. And I went to school the next day, and I remember being really nervous because my friends would think I was, a loser. And I showed up, and I remember putting my bag in the book bag in the locker, and the boys gathering around my locker, and saying, "Hey, I heard you got in a fight," and I was declared the winner. And I thought it was really odd because I walked away, but the other boys said I was the winner because I had the opportunity, but I didn't take it. It's not the end of the story. So that kind of resolved itself. But when I got home, there was a piece that was left undone, and that was the relationship with this young man, Jerry. And so that night, and my parents didn't know about all of this, but that night I went down the street and went to Jerry's house, and I knocked on the door, and I asked if I could talk to him, and I guess I talked to a parent, and sure enough, then Jerry came to the door, and we sat in his basement.
Oh my gosh.
And I asked him, "Why did you hit me?" And I must have been shaking. I remember the idea of being nervous, but I asked him, "Why did you hit me?" and he said, well, I heard you laughing in the back of the bus, and he thought that I called him kind of derogatory name, and he took offense, and so he thought that I was laughing at him.
Wow.
So then he took it upon his own initiative to strike me, and I remember saying, I never said anything about you, and I'm sorry that you felt that way. We graduated together from high school. I mean, that was years later, but it was resolved. You know, after we had that confrontation and sat in his basement. Granted, everything wasn't all, you know, peachy after that. We'd gotten in a fight, but after a while, that all kind of dissipated because we had reconciled.
Did you build a kind of friendship around that, or like, or
Not,
just
no,
kind of an acquaintanceship? Like,
it'd be great to say.
Pass
Yeah,
each other in the hall, and be like, hey,
we had a great, we had a great friendship when we were at each other's weddings. Now, I mean, it's not Hollywood, but it's, but yeah, it had ended, and we went on with life. Lived in the same neighborhood for a while, and then we moved away. But the piece for me was that all the lessons I've been learned in the church, I've been taught in the church. You know, all those lessons I learned about how we're supposed to treat each other. It was all brought to fruition. It was real. That here was this fight, and then the effort to reconcile, and then it was reconciled, and the pieces were put back together. And that's the way we're supposed to treat each other. And for me, it was the confidence of, yeah, this is the right thing to do, and yes, I can do it, and I am called to live as Jesus has taught.
Yeah, so how did that impact you after high school, like through your career, through seminary, as a pastor at Manassas, here as the president of seminary?
At the seminary?
At the seminary. How has this impacted your career?
So, to never underestimate the power of a relationship would be a piece of it, that every relationship is important, and it's given me motivation that where there is brokenness, whether it is with me or between other folks, that we need to work to resolve that. And it goes from family to community to world, and that this is our call. And it does take work, and it does make us nervous, and we do shake, but that this is the work we should be about. And so that's been a constant theme. And the piece about relationship, all relationships are important and sacred, and deserve our time, attention, and love. You know, love God, love one another. Yeah. It's real stuff.
I think so too. Yep. Definitely.
Pretty cool.
I think about Palestine and building relationships across, okay, there's this wall, right, that a lot of people are familiar with. And part of the reason why there's so much violence is because the people on either side don't understand who each other are, right? And so part of what Christian Peacemaker Teams does in that setting, and part of what I would love to do as a relationship builder, right, if you want to do that, is to introduce Palestinians to Israelis and help them find common ground, help them find things to connect on. Like that's a vision for a greater, a way to build peace on even the global scale, and even in seemingly impossible situations, is like once you get to know somebody, they become human. They no longer become that Israeli across the wall or the kid who socked me in the back of the head.
Right.
Like they become Jerry. They become the people that you know. They become your brothers, sisters. Sometimes they become your spouse. Sometimes they become cousins or best friends or coworkers. And you can't see them as an other anymore because they're not. They're closer to you. Now, in terms of bringing countries together, that's a little trickier. Countries are whole people, but whole lots of people. But I still think relationship is possible even then.
I do too. And I think it's about always raising up another generation of folks that are willing to risk. It's really important to me. I mean, that's in my position as president of the seminary, to encourage folks to risk and to spend time on their relationships and to think systemically. You know, so we think about individuals, but then we also think about families, and then we think about communities, and how do we develop healthy churches and healthy neighborhoods and a healthy denomination and healthy ecumenical partnerships, and yeah, it's a bit idealistic, But I'm all right with being idealistic.
I am too.
I mean, I'm okay with that, and to work for it. I mean, it's not just about having great ideas.
Mm-hmm.
It's about having great ideas and the willingness to put your best effort forward,
Yeah.
and to try to convert some people,
Mm-hmm.
you know, to what it means to be healthy, to be non-anxious, to be a good listener, to be someone that's loving.
Mm-hmm.
We need leaders like that who don't get upset all the time and take
Yeah.
things so personally,
Mm-hmm.
but create some space for that relationship to develop, for the Holy Spirit to move, for God to be present,
Yeah.
and allow it to just work. I think one of the most difficult pieces in this peace piece is that it takes time.
It does take time, especially if you're going to rise up another generation, right? That takes time for them to grow up.
It does.
But it's those kids when they make different choices than the choices we've made. That's how the world changes.
It's that generational piece.
Yes, exactly. Very generational.
But we need the current generation
To teach the younger generation.
Yeah. And
yes,
so,
that's why you have to convert this generation
Yep.
to help teach the younger generation to bring up a new way.
Well, but to tell some of the stories. I mean,
Yeah.
I've had the great honor and privilege of meeting some of the folks from earlier generations who have set us on this course for kind of this day as to what we should do and how we should be thinking, and it's carrying those stories forward about how peace was absent and then it came to be. So then we look for the next place where it's absent and how it can come to be, because there's plenty of inspirational stories that go back to the Bible. But we need folks that are willing to, like in this project, carry those stories to that generation that will rise up. I mean, I think it's awesome. I think it's just very...
Yeah, I love stories. I love hearing them, and I love hearing the stories of peacemakers who have gone before me. I mean, that's part of what has inspired me to be a peacemaker, is all the stories, all the things that I've heard are possible, that I haven't yet seen, but I know are possible because these stories have been told to me.
Well, and to meet other people. I remember meeting Dale Ott in Geneva, and he took me to the very spot where M.R. Ziegler picked him up.
What?
From, it's right in front of the rail station. And here Dale Ott, he says, this is the very spot where I met M.R. Ziegler, and then points up to M.R. Ziegler's apartment. And to be with Dale, that was inspiring for me, and yet I have stories like that, and you have stories where we can look to a particular place or a time or an event or a person and say, that was the moment. It was on Hummel Street. That was my moment. For me, it was at the Greens of Westminster. I had a moment. And we probably have a whole bunch of moments. And being around with folks who have moments, I think is pretty inspiring, because you know then the Spirit is moving.
Yeah.
Always.
Definitely.
Even in dark times.